Time to upgrade your style and get better TV. I know you're gonna smile when you get faster speeds and you upload and download. It's such a breeze. Time to upgrade to Amplia. They suit all your needs. Time to revamp your style and get better TV. Revamp your style and enjoy faster speeds. Revamp your style, switch to Amplia. Revamp your style and make your life easier.
Make the switch today and revamp your digital life with Amplia. Sign up for our double play plan with internet and TV for only $375 per month. Visit ampliapromos.com or call 800-HOME. That's 800-4663 for more information. Amplia, powered by B-Mobile.
This is Brian Springer of Customized Health Solutions. For the past 20 years, our clients have benefited from our Compass Assessment service. Whether it's been acid reflux, high blood pressure, male erectile dysfunction, hormonal imbalance issues like polycystic ovaries or fibroids, eye problems such as glaucoma or cataracts, we can help.
I am seeing some positive results.
Good news, boys. Instead of taking that PS beans, you wouldn't believe how much improve our performance.
That's just a small sample. For further information, please like and follow the Customized Health Solutions Facebook page. Go check out our YouTube video. Come visit us at number 5 5th Street in Woodbrook or call us at 627-2640 or 682-8819.
It's unforced with what we love. We're the greatest night riders. Put your hands up on your heart and sing. Playing for TKR means everything. Together we play, we fight and we win. We tougher than everybody else. Okay, I know we are kings by ourselves. Alex, we ready. Rough and we ready. Put up on your hands, TKR family. Put up your hand, TKR family, and support your team in the Hero CPL 2021. And this year we're using the hashtag We Are TKR.
This is I 95.5's Who the Cap Fit.
Who the cap fit? Let them wear it.
When money is your god, you are never going to be fulfilled. You are never going to be happy. Because no matter how much you have, it is never going to be enough. Ted Turner.
Who the cap fit? Let them wear it.
Hello world. Hello world. This is www.i955fm.com. Trinidad.
This Sunday on episode 36 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
Born of the protest and struggle of the 1970 Black Power Revolution, September 8th, 2021 marks 51 years of Servol's existence, but half the story has never been told.
The people who built Servol were the Defense Force personnel and some workers and volunteers who work and toil in the field.
This Sunday from 6:15 p.m. on I-95.5 FM and live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Tune in to hear retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Petty Officer David Bumper Grant, who will set the record straight about the history of Servol. And from 8:30 p.m. switch to TV6 to watch episode 6 of Eye on Health on Sexual and Reproductive Health. Also streaming from 8:45 p.m. on the Eye on Dependency YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This is Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Sundays at 6:15 p.m. on the most influential name in radio, I-95.5 FM.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Eye on Dependency. Right here on I-95.5 FM, live on the Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Good evening, Natasha.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago.
Welcome once again to another informative program, this time a trip down memory lane. You've been hearing the promo, and I know lots of folks who at Servol, who've been to Servol, have been really interested in hearing this program this evening. I'm really thankful that we have the opportunity to document history once again, and that is what we're going to be doing here this evening with these two gentlemen that we'll hook up with in a bit. It's very important that we document history properly. I've always said it here that we don't take credit for anything that other folks do, and we never have a problem with crediting people for their work done. That's very important. And
it's important to get it right for history's sake, for posterity's sake, and to give credit where it's due, right?
Yes. And so when someone really reverts to the history of anything or anyone, it must be documented properly. Thank God we have a couple remaining people from the establishment of Servol alive to tell the story. And one of the lead, I should say, in Staff Sergeant retired Tim Lambkin will lead off the discussion this evening. He's accompanied by David Bumper Grant, who was a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. But before we do that, it's Independence Republic, and we must also focus on us as a nation. We're going to start off with a short video on the protocols, or short piece on the protocols of the flag, or national flag. And this was put together by the Communications Unit of the Ministry of National Security and the AB Unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So we go to that, Natasha?
Yep.
And when we return, we get right into the meat of the matter with the origins of Servol. Stay right there, we'll be back.
Our national flag belongs to all of us. Our national coat of arms with our national buds inscribed therein is the sacred trust of all our citizens. So it is today. Please, I urge you, let it always be so.
As part of this country's transition from colonialism to independence in 1962, the government, through its Independence Committee, designed and selected a number of key identifiable emblems that have been used to enhance Trinidad and Tobago's identity. Our national emblems reflect the history, values, culture, and vision of our nation. They are sacred and should be duly respected. With this in consideration, the Ministry of National Security encourages citizens to cherish and to hold our national symbols to the highest esteem. PNT's national symbols include the national flag, the coat of arms, and the double chiconia flower. The national flag was designed by Carly Chang in 1962. The colors are vibrant red, white, and black. Red is the color most expressive of our country. It represents the vitality of the land and its peoples. It is the warmth and energy of the sun, the courage and friendliness of the people. White is the sea by which our islands are bound, the cradle of our heritage, the purity of our aspirations, and the equality of all men under the sun. Black represents the dedication of the people joined together by one strong bond. It is the color of strength, of unity of purpose, and of the wealth of the land. The colors red, white, and black represent the elements of fire, water, and earth, which encompass all our past, present, and future, and inspire us as one united, vital, free, and dedicated people. For flags flown on land, the dimensions should be a 5 feet to 3 feet ratio, and for flags flown at sea, it should be a 2 feet to 1 foot ratio. When hoisting the national flag, it should be hoisted briskly to to the top of the staff. Care being taken to ensure that it occupies the correct position on the halyard, the right upper corner of the flag being at the peak of the staff. While the national flag is being raised or lowered, or while it is passing in a parade or review, everyone should pay respect to it by standing at attention and facing the flag. Men and women in civilian dress should remove their hats, and persons in uniform should salute. The Defense Force colors should receive the same respect. When lowering the flag is to be lowered slowly and with dignity. Here's what you need to know about displaying Trinidad and Tobago's national flag. In this country and at its overseas missions, no other flag, color, standard, ensign, or other emblem should be displayed above or to the right of the national flag. All other flags are flown together with the national flag of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago should be placed to the left of it. When the flags of two or more nations are displayed together, they are to be flown from separate staffs of the same height, and all the flags should be as far as possible of the same size. When the national flag is flown with other flags, it must be the first to go up and the last to come down, and it must never be lowered while other flags are flying or are being hoisted. When the national flag is flown in a group with local flag, standards, ensigns, or emblems, such as those belonging to townships, institutions, societies, and organizations, it should be at the center and at the highest point in the group. When the national flag or any other flag or flags are displayed from cross staffs against the wall, the national flag should be on the right, with its staff placed in front of any other staff or staffs as the case may be. For more guidelines on the usage of our national emblems, please read the National Emblems of Trinidad and Tobago Regulation Chapter 1904 of the Laws of Trinidad and Tobago and the National Identity Guidelines of Trinidad and Tobago. Both documents can be viewed by visiting the National Archives of Trinidad and Tobago under the National Guidelines on the Usage of the National Emblems at
was a very useful video, again, provided to us by the Communications Unit of the Ministry of National Security on our national flag, what it means, and how it should be flown. A very useful information. I'm sure you learned something this evening.
And of course, we always share that the people flag is flown at half staff.
Yes.
On land, half mast on the sea.
I see. Yes.
All right. So we thank Israel Absalom for putting this together. He and the TTPS AV unit. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to hear from these gentlemen that we promised you, retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Petty Officer David Bumper Grant on the origin of Servol. And remember, we have that Iron Health series coming up this evening, and it's going to be very interesting for you to listen to. So take your time. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back.
In 2012, it was confirmed that I had AIDS. It wasn't easy at all because I got remarried and had a child, and it was...
You're listening to Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Reality radio at its best.
In 2012, it was confirmed that I had AIDS, and it wasn't easy at all because I got remarried and had a child, and it wasn't easy at all because I didn't have walkers and pampers, and the doctor said he was going to die.
Don't miss episode 6 of Eye on Health on sexual and reproductive health this Sunday from 8:30 p.m. on TV6 and from 8:45 p.m. on the Eye on Dependency YouTube channel.
Thank you for calling the Counter-Trafficking Unit of Trinidad and Tobago. How may I help you?
The Trinidad and Tobago's Counter-Trafficking Unit, also called the CTU, was established through an Act of Parliament, the Trafficking in Persons Act, Chapter 1210, or the TIPS Act. We are a specialized multidimensional, civilian-led agency under the Ministry of National Security, responsible for the daily operations of the counter-trafficking response of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. We implement government policies developed by the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons, effective identification of victims and witnesses, prevention of trafficking, protection and prosecution, all through effective partnerships. We also operate a toll-free anonymous hotline, 800-4288-4CTU, where the public can report possible cases of human trafficking. We screen and interview persons to identify possible victims of trafficking. We refer identified victims to appropriate agencies for support and care. Specially trained, positively vetted police officers working in the CTU gather evidence, investigate, and prosecute human trafficking cases. In keeping with our public education mandate, we also deliver training to our many stakeholders and partners. We collaborate with local, regional, and international organizations, NGOs, churches, and faith-based organizations to educate and warn the public on how to recognize human trafficking. We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
I'm Marva, and you listen to Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha on I-95.5 FM, Trinidad and Tobago. Don't be a fool and be a mule.
Right, thank you for staying with us. And always, want to pay homage and respect to those of you who continue to support our Dependency, whether radio, YouTube, Facebook. We thank you so much for being hungry for education, as we are just as hungry to share it. And before we go to the gentlemen, I want you all to know we found Junior. Eric Valley, we found Junior finally.
Yes.
And he's resting well, comfortably at Zion Golden Age Senior Home. And we tell you more about that during the program, but it's a place for 24-hour care. And those of you, I know it's not an easy decision to take your elderly to a home, but sometimes these services are needed so that everyone can be comfortable and they can have 24-hour care. So Zion Golden Age Senior Home is at the 22 2nd Street, Tumpuna Road, and they have room right now, I understand, for 2 more. So we will again share that information for you as we go along in the program. Public service announcement, we could do that for them because they're taking care of our senior citizens and they're doing a pretty good job at it. So Junior is in good hands, folks. And
Junior Chedi, that is.
Yes, and we'll hear more about him as we go along. Big things in store for Junior still. And we thank the good folks at Zion Golden Age Senior Home for taking care of him. All right, so again, we'll tell you more about them before the program concludes this evening. So let's go to these gentlemen. We have them online, ready and ready to go. I could say that especially for Mr. Lambkin, who is very passionate about this topic. And Mr. Lambkin and Mr. Grant, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Welcome to Independency.
Thank you, Garth, and Mr. and Mrs.
Natasha, right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us and revealing to us, as we hope you will hear, our audience will hear this evening, about the origins of Servol. Can we start with
Mr. Lambkin?
Mr. Lambkin.
Yes, Mr. Lambkin, could you tell us about this, that half of this story public does not know about, and I'm really interested in hearing, and we want them to hear too as well, the history of Servol. So you can take it away, sir.
Thank you again.
How did this idea come up? How did 12 members of the Defense Force end up at Servol? Because we've been looking online and we're looking for their names, and there's nothing that documents that online. to tell us, well, who these gentlemen were, and if their families want to remember them, their families are still alive. You'll want to know that the contribution they made to the development of our country, then it must be told. So tell us, how did this all start?
Well, that I would first like to thank again you both for giving us the opportunity after years of agonizing to share our story with Trinidad and Tobago. In 1968, the then government of Trinidad and Tobago, led by Dr. Eric Williams, took a decision to introduce in Trinidad and Tobago a youth camp program. As a result, at least I think a dozen members of the Trinidad and Tobago regiment, mostly soldiers who were instructors, were selected. I was part of that. I was fortunate to be part of that team. That team consisted of some of our best instructors and soldiers at that time, non-commissioned officers. Guys like Herman Holder, Raymond, George Simon, Kelvin Nurse, Carl Young, Desmond Ming, Charlie Spooner, myself, were selected to go to the Chaguaramas Youth Camp and conduct an induction training program for youth of Trinidad and Tobago. As a consequence of that experience, at the completion of, I think we trained at least 3 induction period, I think 3 batches. I think it was 3 batches we trained. And as a consequence of the results of that training, the impact that we had on those inductees, most of whom graduated into jobs in the police service, the regiment, TN Tech. The oil industry was just starting to develop in Amoco. A lot of those guys went to Amoco. And 1970 came about, and we had our Black Power, so-called Black Power situation. In addition, the Army we had our problems in the Army, and as a consequence of that, we, the soldiers, were introduced to Servol. I want to go into detail, some detail, how we got that introduction. After the events of the Black Power situation had more or less simmered down, Father Pantheon and West Hall went up into the hills of Laventille. And after about a month or so, I saw on the papers a press release from Father Pantheon and West Hall where they were asking for volunteers, hopefully to assist them with working with youths in the community, primarily youths who were more or less interested in sporting activities, primarily football and basketball. I am from the area. My roots were from the Gonzales Laventille area. And fortunately or unfortunately, I was one of the first young men from the area to be selected as to represent Trinidad as a national footballer. So I had some influence in the community. And I always wanted to go back into the community based on my training and experiences. In between 1968 and 70, I was fortunate to be sent to England by the Army to do an advanced physical training program. And while in England, I had this yearning when I get back home, in addition to my military duties, I wanted to go back into Laventille, Gonzales, in the area where I grew up, and work and impart my skills and knowledge with the youths, because I had seen changes in the culture of the young people in the area around 1969, 1970. So I responded to that advertisement by Father Pantin on West Hall. And subsequently, I went to their office. They had an office in Desperately Crescent, an office that was at least loaned to them by a family called the Cochran family on Desperately Crescent on Lambkin Road. There I met Mr. Hall and Father Pantin, and I volunteered my services to them. They were very happy to have me, because what West Hall in particular indicated that he being a cricketer, was on contract at that time with West Indian Tobacco Company. He said most of the young men up there were interested in football and basketball, and he was happy that I, being a footballer, a former national player, and also from the community, he thought I would be an asset to them. As a consequence of that meeting, I volunteered my services to at least give them the youths at least 2 days a week when I was off duty. And we started
Mr. Lambkin, if I might interrupt you for a second, how old were you at that time?
I was 29, 30. I was 30 years of age.
Yeah, we have some pictures that we're going to show you, show the people when Tim Lambkin and they were in their prime, in their youth.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mr.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you're just joining us, folks, you're listening to Dependency. You just joined in, and we are speaking with retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Chief Petty Officer David Bumper Grant, and they've given us the history of Servol, how it got off the ground. Go ahead, Mr. Lambkin.
Yes, as a consequence of that discussion between Father Pantin Westall and myself, I started this program at the Sinbabs, the corner of Sinbabs and Laventille Road. There was a hard surface area next to a gas station, and we started our first session there with the youths. We started with about 20-something youths, which eventually built up. After a month or so, youths from as far as Chumakat, Caledonia, some guys came from Belmont to be part of the coaching program. And after that month, Father Pantin, West Hall, and I met at that same office in Desperate Crescent. And Mr. Hall indicated to us that he was going back to Barbados. And he thought it was a good idea for Father Pantin possibly to approach the regiment to seek at least my release on secondment to assist him. As a result of that, Father Pantin met subsequently with the Brigadier Seret, and a meeting was arranged with Father at the Defense Force Headquarters, then Defense Force Headquarters, which is at the present CDA building. That was the first Defense Force Headquarters. Father Pantin, Mr. Hall, myself, Brigadier Seret, Commodore Mervyn Williams, who was the second in command of the Coast Guard. We all met at that CDA's office. And at that initial meeting, Father Pantin indicated to the Brigadier my role for the past month in assisting them in that project in Laventille with the youths. And the Brigadier was very elated about the idea. and enthused, because at that time, the army, the image of the army was, I think, was at a low ebb. That's how I would put the situation. It was at a very low ebb in the public's view as a consequence of what transpired in Teteron. Anyway, it was decided at that meeting, the brigadier suggested, instead of him releasing just me alone, he suggested that at least he could release 6 additional soldiers. And he suggested to Commodore Williams that he thinks it would be a good idea to at least have 5 Coast Guard men who might be interested and also have the commitment to do that kind of work. And those people that we were selecting, he emphasized, the soldiers, both soldiers and Coast Guard men, must have commitment to the working with the youths of the community. Because he was more or less, that's the brigadier, was more or less emphasizing the importance of restoring the image of the defense force in the public's eye. As a result, 12 servicemen were selected. I was ordered by the brigadier to select 6 soldiers in addition to myself, and he also instructed Commodore Williams to select 5 Coast Guard representatives on that team. As a result of that, I nominated 6 footballers who I thought had the commitment and also the interest, namely Charlie Spooner, who was a national footballer, Mervyn Joseph, a national footballer, Winston Phillips, Johnny Francois, Pete Richards, and George Joseph, and myself. Commodore Williams and the Coast Guard selected Petty Officer, then now Petty Officer Grant, leading seaman at that time, Desmond Simmons, Carl Charles, Ansel Aubin, and Mervyn Constantine. That was the team selected from the Army and the Coast Guard. We subsequently met with Father Pantin at West Hall the following Monday at the office in Laventille, where we decided with Father Pantin and West Hall to more or less divide the area into 12 zones to accommodate 12 servicemen. And what we used as our boundaries were Piccadilly Street in the west, Mova in the east, Sealots in the south, Belmont and Gonzales in the north. And we were assigned all these respective areas to work in.
Mr. Lambkin?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that we could now ask Mr. Grant, before you go on, or I don't know if you had it planned any other way, but we could hear from him now to tell us how did he become involved, and know what is that okay with you?
Yes, of course.
Right, Mr. Grant. So,
Yes,
being a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard at the time, where were you when you got this call to join the crew?
I was at Servol, and I was called to the regulating office and was told to report to Defense Force headquarters at Chagaramas. There I met 7 soldiers with 5 other Coast Guard men. There we met Brigadier Surratt, who inform us that we are selected to join Servol on a secondment assignment.
Now, as a sailor, your job is on the sea, right?
Yes.
Most of the time, or should be. How did you all feel about that, knowing that the land forces and sea forces are supposed to be different, but you all accepted the task anyway? How did you feel about that?
We did, because I was living in Lambkin.
Good.
As a member of the Defense Force, I felt that it was a privilege to help the people in my area. So this was my commitment.
Right. And it's interesting what Mr. Lambkin mentioned earlier in terms of the brigadier's wish to re-establish the Defense Force after the events of the mutiny in 1970, to sort of reacquaint members of the public with the real purpose and mission of soldiers and sailors. And it's interesting that he would have seen this as an opportunity to do that, to change the image of soldiers and sailors.
Because Mr. Lambkin, Mr. Grant, because at that time the image of the regiment and the Coast Guard is as if you all were supposed to be enemies with each other. Remember, the soldiers tried to move over Teteron and the Coast Guard stopped them. So now,
Of course.
here we are, have soldiers and sailors working alongside each other, together, and I think it was a very good move.
Yes, of course. And could I
Just
Mr.
Grant, you want
to say something?
Yes.
Yeah, because don't mind the Army and Coast Guard were a little loggerhead, but we knew each other, who was on our side and who was not, and we cooperate with who were on our side.
Yep.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, Mr. Lambkin, you wanted to proceed?
Yes.
We'll get back to Sir Grant's role, because we knew that he has specific role too as well in the setting up of all this and the rollout. So
Yes,
yeah,
we'll get back to the ground.
Yes.
Okay, I want to focus on our introduction to the community. When we were introduced to the community, of course, there was this atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust that prevailed in Trinidad and Tobago, more so up the hill, in those respective areas that we were assigned. And a lot of the people, were very suspicious of us, thinking hopefully that we may be coming to at least spy and also whether we were really interested in assisting them really genuinely. But because most of us were from the community, and also what helped us to, as sportsmen, most of us were sportsmen, national footballers, etc. We had at least support from the youths. So we started by using football in particular and sports in general to win confidence. But it was not an easy time the first year, because lots of us suffered a lot of abuse, by some residents and stuff, because they thought that that we were not genuine. So we had to prove ourselves. And also a hindrance to us too, and Mr. Grant could, say his piece on this, is that they had viewed initially the organization as a Catholic organization, and the priests, and there was a suspicion of priests and nuns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we had to overcome that kind of situation by winning the trust of the community.
Even though you all were from the area, they still, Mr. Grant, you experienced that too. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Lambkin. Let's talk signal to Mr. Grant dropped off, so we'll come back.
Yes. So we spent almost over a year trying to winning the trust of the community. But what has assisted us was sports, in particular football and basketball. What we found that most of the youngsters under 15 or so were more or less interested in basketball. And basketball was very popular on the streets. They were playing basketball on the streets. And at that time, the police used to run them off the streets. And what happened subsequently, when it was drawn to our attention, generally from all the community that we were working, all of us had that general kind of thought, because we used to meet once a week, every Monday, with Father Pantin, and we'll collate, activities and also focus on the mission, on the objective of the group, because we were still trying to build trust. And we recognized we were making some inroads about a year with sports, and in basketball and football in particular. So we decided to at least start a basketball coaching program. But we had no facilities. And also the police were running the youths off the streets, the various streets in the communities. So on the advice of Father Pantin, we approached the police service at that time, and we coordinated with Superintendent Jessica Phillips, who was, I think, the PRO at that time, and she was very, very cooperative. We were able to arrange meetings with the youths in about 3 communities, and she suggested she would speak to the police service and have them take a different approach to what we were doing and also to the youth. And she was very helpful. And as a consequence of that, we organized, when they say we, I want to explain something here. We, the soldiers, in addition to some civilian volunteers, were the people in the field. Father Pantin's role was primarily that of fundraiser, and he was our link with the business communities. That was his primary role, but we were more or less the foot soldiers with the volunteers who assisted. And the first coaching program we organized was with basketball. And we were able to get the services of some of the best basketball coaches and players in Port of Spain. At the time, Eddie Mansu, who was a businessman, but also one of Trinidad's top basketball players, he was my friend, I got him. And Dul Best, who was the national coach at the time, Slim Jr., and a couple other basketball players. Piggott, a guy by the name of Piggott. And we got the Sinbab's government school with the permission of the Ministry of Education. We marked a basketball court there. And that was marked, that first basketball court was marked by also a soldier, Frank Merrick, who did subsequently yeoman service in spreading basketball and coaching basketball all over Trinidad, in particular the East Port of Spain area. He even extended his services to Tobago. As a consequence of our success with that basketball coaching program with the youths, which subsequently organized competitions in the different areas, the young ladies in the area were interested in playing netball. And we took a similar approach. And we approached the Netball Association through Mrs. Lister Lewis, who mobilized some of the top netballers in the country, including deceased Jean Pierre, Pinky Drayton, Veronica McDonald, Peggy Castaneda, to name a few. And for 6 consecutive weekends, those ladies used to come up to Laventille and coach these young ladies of Laventille.
So
And
by
it's a
that
direct-
time, Mr. Lambkin, so by that time,
Yes.
Peggy's still alive, right? Peggy Castaneda.
Yeah.
Um,
That's Valentino's wife.
Oh yes,
She was part
correct.
of
Yes,
that.
yes. I knew. I always thought about.
Yes.
Yes. Peggy's still alive. That's right. No, by that time,
Yes.
the young ladies, the people of Laventille would have accepted you all, and realized that
Yes.
you're not working for the CIA, and
Yes.
or the Catholics, but you're there to really help transform the area.
Of course.
If you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Independency. And listen, I know we now starting to get into the meat of the matter. Mr. Lambkin calling some names here that, excuse me, that we haven't heard in a while. And I'm sure their families listening will be very proud. And we have some pictures. I think, Mr. Lambkin, you could identify the lady in the picture later on that we're going to show. Here, remember, we can, technology now allows us to show stuff while we're here. So, Mr. Lambkin, stick a pin right there. We're going to take a break. So you have time to drink some water. And when we return, we're going to continue with this trip down memory lane and documenting of our history. It's really important. I'm really enjoying it so far. And thank you, gentlemen, for wanting to share this with us. Because we also intend to document the history of the cancer registry. We'll do that next week. As I said, documenting history in its proper context is very important for our country going forward. So stay right there, folks. We're going to take a break. We'll be back.
This is reality radio at its best. Eye on Dependency on 995.5 FM.
Cappy, talk to you now, boy. Well, there's small work for you to do. Make a 10 G's, we go do for me. 10 G's? Where's that how I do this, boy? Well, if you take in your boat, we're going to the islands, pick up some people and then bring them back for me. That's all you have to do.
That's something like human trafficking, man. That's a serious crime. I can't make that.
Trafficking in human beings is a serious violation of a person's human rights. It violates a person's right to freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and freedom of identity. It is a heinous crime which affects local, regional, and international peace and security. A victim of human trafficking is subjected to many types of abuse. The crime destroys a person's dignity and self-worth. Victims often feel hopeless, are suicidal, and are stigmatized in their communities. Child victims are deprived of their rights to education, play, and social interactions. They're essentially robbed of their childhood, and that can never be regained once those years have passed. If we do little or nothing to fight against human trafficking in our country, we can face economic sanctions from international agencies and partners. Our country will be losing money. Doing little or nothing to fight against human trafficking will tarnish our country's international image and, most of all, the value we place on human life. Human trafficking is no respecter of persons. Anyone can be a victim. So let us all strive to safeguard human life and dignity in Trinidad and Tobago.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
In 2012, it was confirmed that I had AIDS, and it wasn't easy at all because I got married and had a child, and it wasn't easy at all because I couldn't have walked as a purpose, and the doctor said he would die.
Don't miss episode 6 of Eye on Health on sexual and reproductive health this Sunday from 8:30 p.m. on TV6 and from 8:45 p.m. on the Eye on Dependency YouTube channel.
Hello, my name is Raquel, a trainee mate at HMP Drake Staffordshire, England, and you're listening to Iron Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Please, people, don't traffic drugs. The money is all nice, if not it.
Thank you for staying with us, folks. And remember, folks, the Zion Golden Age Senior Home, they have room for 2 more people. heart care, you're going to get there at 22 2nd Street, Umpuna Road, Arima. Give them a call at 350-3772. That's 350-3772. They have day and night caregiving services, professional certified staff, safe and secure environment, daycare services for the elderly, caregiving services day and night, healthy and nutritious meals, and of course, when things on the good side, they do field trips and other recreational activities, and they have room for 2 more people. So if you're all interested, if anybody's looking for a decent home for their loved one to be taken care of 24/7, then give them a call. Zion Golden Age Senior Home, 350-3772. Junior is well rested and looking really nice and healthy, is doing well. So Derek Valley, we have to go look for Junior, right? So that's where he is, and we thank the folks there for taking care of him. All right, folks, so let's get back to this trip down memory lane. And remember, next week, of course, as part of information, we also have to go. There's a cancer registry here that started, and I'm sure you all don't even know who started it or remember who started it. So we will touch on that next Sunday, please God, during what we have in store for you. So, Mr. Lambkin, we have retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Petty Officer David Bumper Grant on a Zoom call with us. Mr. Grant is out there in the Bronx. Mr. Lambkin is right here, still home in Trinidad and Tobago, born, bred, and kicked. And he's taking us through this journey. Mr. Lambkin, you remember where you left off?
Yes, sir, but I think at this juncture we should introduce Mr. Grant to speak about the health program that Servol initiated.
Right. Yes, Mr. Grant, you led. Yes, he had the health part of it. They had a health center actually. Mr. Grant, tell us about that. Mr. Grant?
Mr. Grant, are you hearing us?
It seems as though
He may not
he's
be
not hearing
us.
Mr. Lampin, go ahead. Mr. Shortman will stick a pin on Mr. Grant and wake him up in a minute. So, yes,
Okay.
Mr. Grant, can you hear us? Excellent. Mr. Grant, we're trying to talk to you here. You hearing anything?
Apparently he's not hearing.
He's not hearing. Okay.
Mr. Grant,
All right.
one going once, going twice. Are you hearing us? All right. Mr. Amkin, go ahead.
Yes, well, as I said, in that first year where we had to win the trust of the community, that we use sports and subsequently culture as a vehicle, a very, very, very good experiment that we experimented trying to use when we realized that it was getting extremely difficult to win the confidence. And we resorted to sports and culture subsequently, that I would explain. I realized that we were on the right track. And we indicated, as I said, we used to meet every Monday with Father Pantin as a group, and we would all report and also plan strategies of how we would hopefully develop the program and by extension community. So when we realized the success of the sporting program, we also realized that there was a need. Well, of course, we had realized that there was a need for skills among the young people and education. So we did a random survey, and most of the young men that were interviewed requested that they wanted to be welders. In particular, most of them wanted to be welders. That was the common kind of interest. So as a consequence, Servol, we decided to set up, of course, Father Pantin. As I said, Father Pantin his major role was that of fundraiser, and also he was the manager or general manager. but his job primarily was to seek funding for us for any projects and conceptualize whatever ideas we have, but we were in the field with volunteers until, we got a welding school started in Sinbad. We got a building which was constructed. And in addition to that welding school, we had a health facility, which Mr. Grant, I was hoping he will be able to speak on that, because that was also a very important outreach program, again, in helping us
Hello.
to...
Sorry about that.
You hear?
Right, Mr. Grant?
Yes, I'm here.
Right.
All right.
So is Mr. Lambkin just going to hand over to you now to speak about the health facility that you all set up. Tell us how that started and where was it? How did that go?
Okay. Our building at the corner of St. Bart's Road and Lambkin was set up late 1970. That building was made to house a medical clinic and a welding school. Myself and Phyllis Andrews
nurse
Phyllis Andrews, sorry. We coordinated different people with far-panting connections with doctors and medicine. We got medicine from overseas organizations. War and Want was the first, and CanSave was the second. Miss Andrews got a custom broker to clear the jobs off the port first. After we stepped up that the medication shelves and everything, we contacted the doctors and they gave us the assurance that they will attend to the clinic. The word went out to the people that we will be having a clinic in that area, because in Lambkin there were no facilities, medical facilities, to facilitate the people on the hill. And that was a much needed clinic. We got people to come to us, where we organize from Monday to Friday. We'll have a doctor permanent from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. His name was Dr. Padmanaban.
Right, and Mr. Grant, we're going to put up, just ask Shopman to put up that picture of you and Miss
Andrews?
Miss Andrews and Keith Richards. So go ahead. While you're speaking, we're going to put up that picture.
Okay. We got the doctors come. Dr. Waveney Charles, who was our main doctor, she came from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Then we had Dr. Michael Camps, who was a pediatrician.
Yes.
He came from 4 to 6.
Okay.
Then we had Leslie Toby, who comes on Wednesday from 4 to 6.
All right.
Then we had Dr. Clark. He came from 4 to 6. And we had Dr. Frankson, Dr. Jeffrey Frankson. He came from 4 to 6.
Nice.
The patients paid $5 for visit and medication. This $5 went back into the drug, went back to buy drugs, what was used. We also had an outreach program in the Heights of Aripo, visited by Dr. Camps and Phyllis Andrews twice a week. Nurse Andrews twice a week.
Right.
Sometimes we alternate.
Right. So when you have time, excuse me, when you have time, you put up the picture. If you're just joining us, folks, you're listening to Dependency, and we are taking a trip down memory lane with two gentlemen who served at the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. There's retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Petty Officer David Bumper Grant. And they're taking us on a trip down memory lane about Servol. And there's the photo. There's the photo of Mr. Richards and David Grant. Chopman, you would have that in the folder that Natasha sent. Yes, in the lineup. So we were hoping that you were going to look for it and then post it. But don't worry, this is when we get that, you'll see the original picture that I just took that quickly to send for you, so that but it's in your lineup that we sent. Yes. So folks, what we always have Shortman working hard offside. But yes, so Mr. Lambkin and Mr. Grant is taking us through the origins of Servol and how it got started. And we really appreciate this trip down memory lane. And for those of you listening, there are people who making contributions already. Like when Carlos and they said, big shout out to Mrs. Veronica McDonald, who have coached some of the best netballers in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force and by extension Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Grant, yes, continue.
Yeah. Also, Phyllis Andrews was the first nurse hired to Servol. Her job was to teach the young ladies as nurses' aides and sex education. That is what we did in this section.
Okay, so Mr. Lambkin, yes, you can proceed again.
Okay, Garth, I want to make a point, Garth, about the use of sports and culture that we use in Servol initially in the first 2 years. We realized after the success that we had using sports through football and basketball in winning the confidence and also starting programs through sports and culture, we decided to at least try to use culture, because we realized most of the young boys, especially young boys and young ladies, at that time, they were more or less interested, they were more or less partying with blocoramas. So we realized that blocorama was a big thing in the community, in all the community, most of the communities. That was 1971. Servol then was not really fully established, one, outside of Laventille, and also we had not had the full confidence of the young people at that time too, still, although we were there nearly 2 years. And the organization was not officially launched in the public's eye. So we had a meeting where we decided, as I said, our group with Father Pantin, where we decided that independence 1971, we should try to launch the project nationally. And we decided to use culture as an event to do that launching, to more or less get at the youths, because blocoram was the big thing. And we decided to touch base with some of the popular DJs from the various communities where we were working. And also, we got a very positive response to that. And then we decided, Father Panton in particular suggested, why not try to involve the steel bands from the communities in which we work in? And we decided to go along, merging these DJs with the steel band, hopefully to launch the project nationally. And also we met and we also decided that we would approach the army through Brigadier Seret for a venue, because we wanted it. When we started to advertise, we realized the response was so, encouraging that we thought we would have had it in a community in Laventille. But then we realized by the response that we could not facilitate the expected crowd. And we approached the brigadier, and the brigadier granted us permission to use the area, which is now the heliport, to launch our project. Father Panton, of course, he was our contact with the business community and also the media. We organized and we got the support of sponsors, and we had a day, Independence Day. We decided Independence in 1971 to launch Servol. And as a matter of fact, prior to the name Servol being coined, on the advice of West Hall, we decided originally the name of the organization was Service Volunteered for All. And West Hall suggested, instead of saying Service Volunteered for All, why not call the organization Servol? And that is how Servol got its name, through West Hall.
So West Hall is responsible for
that,
coming up,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And West Hall remind people who may not remember who West Hall was. Tell us, remind us who West Hall was, please.
West Hall was one of the West Indies' greatest fast bowlers.
Right. And he was here at the time.
At the time,
yes.
Well, West Hall came to Trinidad on contract through West Indian Tobacco Company at that time to coach the youths in cricket all over Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
In communities like Laventille, rural communities and stuff. Some of our best cricketers came out of that youth program that West Hall conducted. As a matter of fact, it was called the West Hall League or whatever,
Yes.
And that event, I want to speak about that event, how it catapulted, that's the word I would use, it catapulted Servol into prominence. That Independence Day, when we launched Servol 71 to launch the program at the heliport, Garth, there was traffic from Roxy to the gate. At that time, the gate was still being manned by the army, and we had to stop people from coming in at the gate. We had over 30,000 people in the heliport in Chaguaramas. People came in to the back on boats to be part of that event. I remember distinctly Wire Austin calling me from San Fernando when he heard about steel bands were involved. And he told me that Tim Lambkin, Fonclair have to be involved with this. We are the best steel band in San Fernando, and all you having this in Port of Spain. We come in, even if you all you invite us, we come in. And Fonclair came down. Wire and his boys came down, and we had a trophy and some prizes for the steel band of the day. And Fonclair won that prize.
Okay.
Wow.
And that event is what launched Servol into prominence nationally. And the idea came from David Grant, who's here now, and I, who were from the Hill.
Now, Mr. Lambkin, I see, and we've been joined by the Honorable Joni Williams, and she was telling us that it was an honor and pleasure to be part of the netball administration back then. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, we came to prominence through, and let's talk a bit about these ladies, Jean Pierre,
yes,
and
Pierre.
Yes, tell us about those people who
words cannot express my gratitude to those ladies, especially Miss Listra Lewis. She was a disciplinarian.
Yes.
She coordinated these young ladies, netballers at the time, Jean Pierre, Pinky Drayton, Veronica McDonald, Pelly Castaneda. I can't remember some of the other names. And they used to come up Laventille on the weekends and conduct these training programs with these young ladies. Some of these young ladies graduated to teams like Marvelites, Senators, some of the top netball teams in the north at least, and in the country by extension, through that program. And also the discipline that that group and Mrs. Lewis instilled in those young ladies today. A lot of them migrated, most of them migrated, but they became better women. And the point I want to make in this forum is that we in Trinidad and Tobago have not explored the strength of using sports and culture as a vehicle towards national development. I have seen it at work through my experiences in Servol. I'm seeing it every day. We have not utilized sports, and we have underestimated the power of sports and culture in building national.
Now, Mr. Lambkin,
Yes.
Natasha is going to call out names of that team that Peggy and they were part of. Natasha?
Yes.
Yeah, so that team that won the World Netball Championships included Ingrid Blackman, Angela Burke Brown, Peggy Castaneda, Heather Charlo, Serena Charles, Marcia Dimsoy, Jennifer Nurse, Cheryl Peters, Jean Pierre, of course, Beryl Prescott, Althea Thomas Luces, and Jennifer Williams.
You know, these names were somebody, you know, every time I hear Marcia Dimsoy, I remember that woman in particular. Marcia Dimsoy was, I used to call her Speedy Gonzalez. Marcia was real fast. She was, according to her partner, man, she was fast. and Vol Prescott, Vol had a sister too, that they played, they were from San Fernando. I remember these people, they brought real glory to Trinidad and Tobago because they were vicious netballers. And back in that time, didn't have sport nutrition and these
sports science,
and this was just raw
talent
and dedication.
Yeah.
Mr. Lambkin?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead. If you're just joining us, folks, you're listening to Dependency, and we are indeed taking a trip down memory lane here with Mr. Retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Petty Officer David Bumper Grant, who've given us the history of Servol.
But it's a very important point that you raised, Mr. Lambkin, the role that sport and culture plays in youth development and youth achievement and the kind of success and achievement that people who are involved in this kind of work can bring to communities across Trinidad and Tobago is not recognized enough.
Yes. Of course. Mr. Grant, I was hoping you would have spoken a bit more about the welding school, the first welding school, and its impact on the community, on the young men.
Mm-hmm.
You know, speak briefly on that.
About that. Yes. All right. Servol started its first welding school in Lambkin. This is because there were no sort of trade schools within the East Dry River area.
Mm.
We started by selecting welding instructors from the area because they will have a better idea and will be able to communicate with the students. The students were selected from boys and girls within the community. They started doing welding classes before they went into the actual welding. They did this for 2 weeks under the instructions of Mr. Hart, Mr. Dick, and Dixon, Joseph Dixon. These people were in the area and they knew the kids. They were like fathers to them and they taught them well. It was also a place for discipline. Each morning you have to be there on time. You have to say a grace for 5 minutes. You had a workout of exercises for 10 minutes. Then you go into the classroom for another 5 minutes, sit down and have a discussion. These classes went on for a year. We got people, well, Father Pantin, as we said, was the contact personnel. He contacted Mr. Christopher from Tech Trade School. He was the senior technical instructor. He will come to Laventille twice a week to test the students. We also got help from Mr. Rogers from Point Fontaine, who helped us with materials for welding. After a year, we started to get jobs for the most senior welders. Like places like the fire services. We had people went to fire services. Got people to go to WASA as welders. This is what they did. We also promote some of the more senior personnel to junior management. And these students were Earl, who after a while went to the fire services, and it was so unfortunate. So unfortunately, he died on Shagamas in the magazine area. Then we had Hilton Charles. Hilton Hathaway, who became a junior instructor, and Earl Charles, who also became a junior instructor.
If you're just joining us, folks, you're listening to Dependency, and we are taking a very serious trip down memory lane here. And as these gentlemen are speaking, are remembering so many things. We had Lynette Duncan online, who was also part of a netball dynasty herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sisters, and they at Skinner Park alive. Many number of times, as Haynes says, Servol continues to impact lives in communities. We would have celebrated 50 years on September 8, 2020. So that's right. Thank you for that information. And thank you folks for joining us in the trip down memory lane. Mr. Grant, you have to add to that, or should we go back to Mr. Lambkin now?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, folks. So Mr. Lambkin, you could continue.
Yes, I would like to continue in a similar vein to Mr. Grant in terms of expanding on the growth of that initial welding school program that we started in Laventille. Subsequently, it was decided by Servol, Father Pantin, and we had an executive committee, I would say the executive committee in quotes, right, who took a decision, which was not really a popular decision, to remove that facility, which is welding school, and also that health facility to Beetham, the present site in Beetham, which is the headquarters. personally, I felt, and I think history has proven right, that I think the timing was wrong in terms of us moving out of Avantil at that time. I think that project should have remained there at least up to today, but at least another 10 years, because it was impacting positively both on the young people who were being trained in skills, and also the community, the elderly in the community, the senior citizens especially, were getting services, medical services, generally that they could not afford, and also that was available to them, you know? And I think that was one of the big mistakes that Servol as an organization made. The timing was wrong. Also, I would like to, Servol at that time, after we realized that most of the young people, young men especially and women, needed skills, we decided as an organization to go into serious vocational training. And I was more or less assigned by Spada Pantin to come into the Claxton Bay, Vancouver area, where we had set up a farm in Vancouver. We got some land from Carney, and we had some boys there, young men from the area, and environs doing agriculture, experimenting agricultural projects there. We got assistance from the University of the West Indies, and we had quite a successful, in the early years, we had quite a successful program being developed in the Montserrat Hills. Apparently, the residents of Claxton Bay heard about what we were doing in Vancouver, and the parish priest from the area in Pointe-à-Pierre requested of us, Servol, whether we could start a similar program in Claxton Bay. This is an important part of the history of Servol that was not really documented and also highlighted. Subsequently, I was assigned to meet with this parish priest, I can't remember his name, who was the parish priest of Pointe-à-Pierre. And we met, and the parish priest suggested that I go in the community of Claxton Bay, included some Hill, the villages of Caratal, some Hill, Diamond, and speak with the people there. And I told them that was the Servol's approach. I spent at least 4 months visiting the villages of Caratal, some Hill, Diamond, Springvale. There I was advised to meet with a gentleman called Mr. MacDonald Ross. Mr. MacDonald Ross, may his soul rest in peace, he has gone to the great beyond. But I had one of the most enlightening conversations with that gentleman. He was a businessman in the community. And he also was born and grew up in the Claxton Bay area. And what that Mr. Ross suggested to me at that meeting that we had, he said, young man, if, that's his exact words to me, if Servol is really interested in helping the young Black youths in Trinidad and Tobago, starting in my community here, you need to go down to Point Lisas. That was in 1973. You need to go down in Point Lisas and see what is taking place in Point Lisas. I took Mr. Ross's advice and I went down into Point Lisas. There I met a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ken Sardina, who was the engineer. At that time, Fujiko was contracted by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to install the infrastructure, the roads and stuff in Point Lisas. And I was advised by Mr. Sardina and subsequently coming back and meeting with Mr. Ross that if Servol wants to help the young people in this area, especially in Claxton Bay and its environs, we should concentrate on vocational training. And to cut a long story short, as a consequence of Mr. Ross' advice, which I took back to Father Pantin and the committee in Servol, we decided to persevere and develop a vocational training program. That center in Forest Park that was constructed out, out of the idea and the recommendation of Mr. MacDonald Ross, who never was given any kind of credit. That center, I am saying publicly today, in Forest Park, by Servol to Servol Life Center, should be renamed the Servol MacDonald Ross Life Center as a tribute to that gentleman who had the vision and foresight to advise me and subsequently Servol that they should concentrate on skills to prepare the young people from the areas, the targeted areas where we work in, to give them that skills. And that is what generated the kind of programs that subsequently followed in Servol.
Mr. Lambkin, if folks, those of you just joining us, thank you very much. You're listening to Independency, and we are speaking with retired Staff Sergeant Tim Lambkin and retired Petty Officer David Bumper Grant. They were part of the team that were instrumental in getting Servol off the ground. Natasha found a couple people who actually went to Servol, like, okay, Patricia said her son went to Servol. Patricia gave on Facebook. Her son went to Servol and benefited from Servol. As a past national footballer, Mr. Lambkin,
yes,
you represented your country well. And when the name Tim Lambkin comes up, folks, I want you all to remember this. Who's the brother of course, Dilamo in the Calypso world. But
cousin,
I want you all to, pardon?
He's my cousin. Dilamo is my cousin.
Yes. But I want people to remember Tim Lambkin as well, who represent Trinidad and Tobago well in an era of footballers that were really dedicated, and sportsmen and women, that is. Now, Mr. Lambkin, what changed? Back then, we had, as no sports science, we had no knowledge, we didn't have whey protein, we didn't have none of these things. But you all were beaters. You all beat people. And when I say that, I mean on the field. You all were dedicated, nationals of Trinidad and Tobago represented your country. What changed? What happened?
We first played with pride. We had pride. That whensoever we entered a field of play, we played to the best of our ability and to give satisfaction more so to our supporters. Whether I would use the regiment, for example. Our first regiment football team consisted of at least 11 national players. The likes of Jerry Brown, Kelvin Birassa, Clive Niles, Lincoln Phillips, Sharky Henry, Victor Gamaldo, Kelvin Birassa, Winston Phillips, all those names. And whensoever we went out on the football field to represent the regiment, we went out there to represent the colors. And all of us, in the back of our minds, losing was not an option, because we saw ourselves as the face of the regiment. More so after 1970, after what occurred in 1970, the image of the regiment was tarnished. Yeah. The footballers were more or less the face of the regiment that restored the public confidence. The army band, for example, was also an instrument of restoring the confidence of the army, the face of the army. Our sportsmen, we had some of the best rugby players in the country. We had some of the best athletes in the country who represented Trinidad and Tobago in the Olympics. And we had, most as importantly, as I said, we had pride.
And when you all, when you all represented Trinidad and Tobago, were you all paid to do this?
No. Yeah, we didn't. There was no. We were not professionals, Mr. Sinclair. We were not professionals.
That's the point I'm trying to make. That
yes,
there was no money. As Lynette says here, it's about money. Pride went out of the window. That pride and dedication went out of the window.
Yes.
As soon as money stepped in, you know what I mean. And as Alison Solani says, you got to remember, well, fast food was not yet on the scene. Our sports were fit. And as I said, it was raw talent.
Of course.
But do you think, though, Mr. Lambkin, just to switch out a little bit, do you think that with the Regiment and Coast Guard's involvement in Servol, did that do anything to improve the image of the armed forces in Trinidad and Tobago?
Definitely. We improved the image of the army and also the confidence of the public by our commitment and dedication during our 8 years giving our services to Servol and by extension the community. And I want to make a point here in that when I say we, the 12 members of that group were never really given the recognition, the kind of recognition both by Servol and the army.
If you're just joining us, folks, you listen to Mr. Lambkin. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and when you return, you're going to call out those names once again for us, and we're going to show images of back then, with the development of Servol and you gentlemen involved, and what happened back then. Of course, the pictures will be in black and white, but they're very visible. You can see it, and so after this break, we're going to hear the names of these 12 people again, and then we're going to show these images. Stay right there, folks. We'll be back.
You're listening to Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Reality radio at its best.
In 2012, it was confirmed that I had AIDS, and it wasn't easy at all because I got remarried and had a child, and it wasn't easy at all because I couldn't have walkers and pampers, and the doctor said he would have died.
Don't miss episode 6 of Eye on Health on sexual and reproductive health this Sunday from 8:30 p.m. on TV6 and from 8:45 p.m. on the Eye on Dependency YouTube channel.
Some of us like to play games of chance, but remember, gaming should be fun, so don't get carried away. Play for a prize, but don't pay the price. Play for fun, but never for keeps. Play smart, but never play all. Winning isn't everything. If you or someone you know needs help, call our gambling addiction hotlines. Rebirth House 24-hour hotline 466-3146 or Serenity Place Empowerment Center for Women 648-5401. An initiative of LCB and Eye on Dependency.
Danielle, and you're listening to Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography. Trinidad and Tobago. Don't traffic drugs, it's not worth it.
Thank you for staying with us, and thank you for joining us on I-95.5 FM and live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. We have some images, as Garth mentioned, we have some images that we would like to share with you, the audience, and you as well, you gentlemen, Mr. Tim Lambkin and Mr. David Grant, who are taking us through the paces of how Servol came to be and the involvement of military personnel in its foundation and successes. Short man, we could start with B, and we could go through them slowly. So this first image is one of all of, well, not all, but some are missing. The members of the Defense Force who were part of the setting up of Servol. So in the back row, we have from left to right, Charles Spooner, Tim Lambkin there with the shades, Father Panton in the middle, Keith Richards, and Desmond Simmons. And in the front row, stooping, we have John Francois, David Grant, and Winston Phillip. And
now, before we move on from this image, Mr. Lambkin, could you read out the names of all 12 of the people who were responsible, please, from the Defense Force, that is?
Carl Charles, Alcil Aubin, Mervyn Constantine, Mervyn Joseph, George Joseph, Frank Merritt, and Ian Phillips.
in addition to the gentleman on our screen right now. And Mr. Simmons, certainly, you can tell this is a picture from the 70s, right? It certainly looks the part.
I think this was 1971.
Right, yes.
Yeah, this one with the chain,
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Saga Boy pull the chain and chest outside. Okay, yes. No, but this is
a really nice photo, though.
Yes, a really nice photo. Yes, Mr. Grant?
I just want to make an observation.
Yes.
Between Charlie Spooner and Winston Phillips, that was me, David Grant.
Right.
Yes.
That's you. Yeah. No. I remember Charlie Spooner. Even he remained active for a very long time. He took part in marathon. Yeah. I think Charlie used to come on this radio program on a Sunday morning, and he spoke about eating raw food for quite a while. He used to promote that. Is that the same man, right?
Charlie Spooner? No. He was a national footballer.
Right, yes. But I remember he, if I'm not mistaken, he used to be with Patrick here on a Sunday morning. He passed away now, right?
No, he's in New York.
Charlie's in New York.
Yeah. The guys who passed away, the members who passed away were George Joseph, Johnny Francois, who's missing here, Mervyn Joseph, Ian Phillips.
Simmons.
Yeah, Desmond Simmons.
I need to stop killing people. I need to stop killing people. Just all right. So now go to the next.
Wait, before you go.
Sorry, Natasha, go ahead.
No.
Frank Merritt is also missing from that picture.
Okay.
Frank Merritt is missing from the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the main architect of the development of basketball in the community.
Okay.
Now I was just gonna ask where this picture was taken.
Where was this picture taken?
And in what year?
1970. That was 71.
71.
So you had already done all of the groundwork and you all were ready to...
Yes. That was 71.
Ready to go. Okay, yeah.
This
is Servol building. The front of it is the medical clinic.
This
area is the building school.
Right.
That's the corner of Laventry Road and St. Babs Road.
Right. Good stuff. And I know you mentioned Dr. Camps, Mr. Grant.
Yes.
He is the husband of my godmother, Ellen Camps. So, and I had no idea he was involved in this kind of work. So I was very pleased to hear that.
He did a lot.
And Dr. Whitney
Charles.
Whitney Charles, yes.
In this area.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go to the next image, Shotman. This is
the Life Center.
Servol Center. Right. So this after it was moved.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you felt that it was not a good idea to move it from where it was.
No, the timing
was wrong.
Yes, I thought that that initial building at least should have been expanded and also developed before we move down to, even if we had to move to Beetham, that building and that the services there should have been
stayed.
Had we stayed, it would have made a world of difference to what transpired subsequently in Labrador in the community.
Right. If you're just joining us, folks, you still have time. You could, even if you're not on Facebook, you can jump on YouTube and check out these images from back in the day when these gentlemen contributed to the development of Servol. So the other image, Shortman, would be right. There's an image now of a lady with some youngsters. You all recognize this lady at all?
She was from the Lambkin area.
Oh, she was a volunteer.
No, we train young ladies from the community, as nursery school teachers.
Right.
We experimented with a project called the IED program, Integrated Education for Development. That's what the program was all about. In that we got sponsorship to fund this program. I think it was from Vanlier, I think, Bumper?
Yeah, Vanlier.
I think it was from Vanlier, to do this IED program, where we experimented with the idea of using the young ladies
from the community
with let's say 2 or 3 subjects or whatever, and train them as nursery school teachers to run this program. And we use the servicemen as social workers. In addition, well, eventually we hired professional social workers. We were working alongside with the nursery school teachers and the community to bring parents into the school, hopefully to have, we use the students, these nursery school children, as a catalyst to mobilize and stimulate the community to do projects and improve the quality of life, and which was very successful. A lot of these kids did extremely well from that experiment.
Nice. Let's go to the other image. As Alison Haynes said, Dr. Camps continues to give his service in Servol. Even up to now, he's attached to the Beetham Life Center. Thank you for your service, Dr. Camps. And Mr. Anthony Ernest Lobby said good evening to you. Tim?
Luby.
Yes.
Luby.
Yes,
Ms. Alison Salandi also says, thank you for your service, Mr. Grant. And
hello, Shortman.
Yes, we're hearing you. We're hearing you.
Yes, I'd like to add one more program which we had, and it was not mentioned.
Go ahead.
We deal with the young people, but we also deal with the old people.
Okay.
Yes.
We have programs.
Senior citizens, Mr. Grant.
Sorry.
Yes. Shortman, just now go back to that last image. Let these gentlemen explain what we're looking at here.
This was mechanic shop on the Beetham.
We
had mechanics who were training the youth in motor mechanic, and this was the insight of how a motor vehicle works.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Shortman, you could go to the other. And it's so sad to know that, after, when cocaine just moved into communities, it just changed the face and everything of communities. Cocaine has a lot to do with that, that nasty drug. This image we're looking at here now.
3 young men and
3 young men.
These are some of the trainees.
These are welding students.
Right.
This is on the Beetham Vocational Center.
And this time didn't have any borderline and demarcations that you can cross. And
there was no borderline when we were there.
Right. It's so sad to know that. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Shortman. Go to the next one. These young men probably grew up into very productive citizens now. Pity we can't recognize them. But we have some young ladies here as well. Another image of, and these were from Avanti too.
I think they were I don't think so. I think for Lapile Village, I think.
Okay.
One of those rural communities.
And I didn't want to say it. but we missed something. We missed the boat. We missed the boat.
Yeah.
You know, it's so
But from
sad.
what I've heard and seen this evening, I think that what you guys established at Servol was the template for a lot of the youth serving organizations that we
Yes.
have today.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
CCC and
Yes.
Mylat and
And the youth camps and
But it's
so on.
interesting also, may I say here, it is interesting also that the military, the senior military personnel, never saw it fit to at least interview any of us and hear our experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were never interviewed
That's
by
so sad.
the military authorities and also the defense force. You know?
Well, Mr. Lambkin, Mr. Grant, Sherman, that's all the images we have. Mr. Lambkin, Mr. Grant, at least we have the information documented here now. And it is etched now in history forever. And
I have one more thing to add.
Sure.
yes, we have about 3 more minutes before we wrap up.
I
Huh?
speak about the senior citizen voucher program. This was something which was established by us, really workers in the field, where we saw the age have problems in getting medication and food stuff. So what we did, we went to Father Pantin, who spoke to the business community, and they vouched that this program could be set up and they will pay for the vouchers. We went to the local shopkeepers, parlor keepers, speak to them about these vouchers, and if they will honor them, and we will end up at the ending of the month going and pay for these vouchers. The shopkeepers accepted, and this was one of the contributions we made to the
function. We were the military personnel were the people coordinating that activity for these services of these senior citizens.
Okay.
There are so many things that this program can express. But we want to thank you all for the opportunity, for at least giving us the opportunity to at least make this contribution tonight.
Yes.
We're very grateful to have you.
We are most grateful to have you. You know, so really happy to get this info. This is Margaret Adams Roberts, who served Servol for 45 years, your neighbor.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Adrian said, really happy.
We didn't even have a chance to speak about that. We had a special school.
Right.
Yeah. In Calvary Hills,
Adrian
which
Grant
was
said,
coordinated by Margaret, that same young lady.
Margaret
She was
Roberts,
from
okay.
Lambkin. She was my neighbor.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
Pinky Drayton. They were, among other people, were teachers there for years, over 40 years. Gave yeoman service to the young children, young people, not children, young adults too.
Yes.
In the community here, and that school.
Adrian Grant says, really happy to get this info, to see these pictures, even though some of them will be before my time. Thank you very much for updating us. And she said what the picture we saw with the parents and children, she said this is a parent outreach program that is still run by Servol today. So, Anthony James, the plumbing instructor.
Yes, he's a successful businessman.
Lovely.
Nice.
Folks, we were so grateful to have you here this evening with us. And we want to thank you once again for your service. And to the people, the men of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, both who still with us, who passed on. We thank you all so much for what you did, for starting this journey that has now spiraled into different programs, and you're accepting to do this. Your service will not be forgotten. It's now etched in history permanently. You can also go back to our page, visit our page and Dependency to get this program so that you can have in your archives. You can actually, well, I know you have to have the young people in the home to do this, but you will see all the comments from the people online who looked on. And we thank you very much, gentlemen. God bless you all. Be safe. God, all blessings to you and your family. And thank you once again for your service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
In the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard and Regiment.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair.
You're welcome.
Blessings.
Blessings. Take care.
Blessings. Take care.
Folks, that's where we have to leave it this evening. And once again, don't forget Zion Golden Age Senior Home, folks. Give them a call, 350-3772. They have room for 2 more senior citizens if you wish. I know a lot of people have been calling us asking about this service. So in Port of Spain area, and they are in 22 2nd Street, Tumpona Road, Arima. So give them a call and offer day and night caregiving services.
And don't forget to tune in to TV6 at 8:30 p.m. this evening or 8:45 on our YouTube channel for episode 6 of the Eye on Health TV series, where we focus on sexual and reproductive health. We have an interview with a young man who goes by the name Mr. Hope.
Yes.
And an official from the Ministry of Health HIV Coordination Unit. So look forward to that.
At 8:30 this evening on TV6.
On TV6.
And 8:45 on our YouTube channel, Dependency. Listen to this story, very interesting. The person he's alive, he's surviving today, he's serving his country still. But it's an interesting story. So Cecilia, Bianca, Annette, all you folks who joined us this evening on YouTube and Facebook, thank you so much for being part of this journey. Mr. Lambkin, Mr. Grant, God bless you all. Folks, short man.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. Be safe, folks.
Good night.
Talk to you next week again.
You're listening to Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Reality radio at its best. The #1 name in talk, I-95.5 FM Talk.